Yeah, I mean, brother, we've learned a lot,
We sure have
like a whole lot.
a whole
Sometimes,
lot.
sometimes I wish we hadn't learned so much because everything we learned, it means we were doing it wrong. Like when you learn something, it's because you were doing it wrong before,
Correct.
you know. And it's been a very humbling experience, but
Yeah, but when you make those mistakes and you don't duplicate them, that's really a worthwhile venture. It's actually fine to make the mistake because when you learn from it and you don't do it again, it actually strengthens your business. So I never look at it as a negative, only as a positive.
yeah. So Kevin and I, speaking with Kevin Broughton here, I just clicked the record button. We're having a conversation. I said, let's record this. So Kevin and I, for the last 12 years, have built one of the largest branches in the nation. And just as an FYI, not in people, because there's some branches that if you close one loan a year, right? You can belong to these branches, and I think there's great that there's services like that available. That's just not who we are. We're
Correct.
for the more successful, full time, wanting to close, you know, a significant income, right? That's who we're looking for.
Right.
Um, but in building one of the largest branches in the nation, um, yeah, we've learned a lot of things. And so we thought we were sitting here talking about some of the things we learned. I said, dude, let's just hit the record button here. This might, and this might get cut on the cutting room floor, and this might get put into a podcast episode. So we'll just kind of see how it goes. So
Sure. Sure.
what's like one thing that you think, like if you had to grab something, what would you say? And in no particular order, what comes to your mind first?
Well, one thing I think we both learned from a lot, Carl, is how difficult it is to actually properly staff a branch for
Oh boy,
profitability.
boy.
And
Hmm.
I think what's interesting is when you and I started doing this, times were very different, right? And there
Hmm.
was not this thing called rate compression, and there was more money in an actual closed-end mortgage than there is today. And
Yeah.
we were able to get away with a few mistakes because, like you and I have discussed in years past, you know, revenue hides a lot of sins. And when you're bringing in a significant amount of money per closed loan, you don't have to run your company as efficiently as when times change. And I think what the last few years specifically has taught us is you better be darn good at being efficient because I think one of the things we've done well after a lot of trial and error is adhere to the rule of 5 to 1 or whatever that we started years ago.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, you got to have 5 closed loans minimally for every full-time employee. And, I
Yeah.
think what a lot of branches that we've seen, and you and I made this mistake a little bit early in the early days, was you get excited, right? Like, oh, I just met Bob and he's a social media strategist and we're going to hire him because he's only 60 grand a year, and then all of a sudden you start doing the math, and if there's a bump in the market or what have you, all of a sudden you're in violation of that rule. And so we got to be laser focused on what are the mandatory jobs needed from a staffing standpoint. What is the proper way to pay those people? What's the proper way to bonus those people? And what
Mhm.
percentage of that? What is your average cost per closed loan of manufacturing inside of your shop? And that's not as easy to do as people who just say, I'm going to build a branch think it
Well,
is.
I tell you one thing we've done very right, and we did this from the day one, is make sure that every single loan officer has an assistant, and that happens on day one. And I think we've done that right because I think and this is meant to encourage branch managers might be listening to this to follow our example that so many loan officers get the thing of, well, soon as you're closing 6 loans a month or 7 loans or 8 loans or whatever that number is, five
Yes,
loans then we'll get you help. But they can't ever get there because they don't have that's like as soon as you win the Daytona 500, we're going to get you that fast car.
right.
It's like, well, gosh, maybe the fast car comes first, and then maybe the assistant comes first, and then we get to the 5 to 8. So like on the 5 to 1 principle, so we need to be closing 5 loans per um
Full time
ass-
employee.
yeah, for full-time employee, and we'll count the assistant being one of them. And I think that's one thing we've done right. I tell you something else I found in this process too. I find, so you think, well, gee, we'll just go get an assistant, and that's easy enough. And it is easy to find an assistant. Finding a great assistant is hard. And I have found that as a salesperson, which is basically, as a branch manager or a loan officer, whatever somebody's, we're all basically salespeople. I find that historically we suck at HR. Like when it comes time to actually hiring
Correct.
somebody
Correct.
or hiring the right person, we tend to hire for the person we tend to hire seems to all be for the wrong reason. It's somebody that I like or somebody I feel for. I want to help them out. Somebody that's brand new, and I think I can train them and teach them. And so I have found that in building a team, it's way better to have like find a team that's already there and plug in, or have an HR department that's hired 50 assistants before they hire yours, and not to rely on ourselves to be our own HR department. That I really screwed that up in the beginning.
We did, but we fixed it quickly, and thank God. Also, I think there's two other things about that, Carl, that we learned that if you're building a branch, I think you want to definitely pay attention to this part. Is You're right, Carl. Generally speaking, not obviously all the time, but generally speaking, the top producing sales guy or the wannabe top producing sales guy is not the best person to hire that helper.
Yeah.
Um, they just aren't for all the reasons you said. Then they have to be managed, and the
Oh.
question comes down to who manages them. And unfortunately, a lot of great salespeople, myself included, I put myself in that category. I'm really good at sales, but I'm not great at management. And I know how to manage myself. I know how to manage and discipline myself to do, revenue producing activities all day long, but I'm not 100% great at management of other people. And so there's a management component that's also mandatory for this to work. And then there's a third thing. And the third thing is the salesperson going to replace the hours they no longer spend chasing page 4 of the Wells Fargo bank statement with high leverage activities of getting loans,
Mm, mm.
And sometimes we struggled with, oh, I can just play more golf, or oh, I can just come in later, or oh, I can just, that's not really the answer, because someone who's closing 4 loans a month who doesn't change their habits now that they have their time back, in the whole reason we set up this whole loan partner program 12 years ago is to avoid the roller coaster effect on a daily basis. But there's a major component to that, and that is the loan originator must, with a capital M, replace those newfound hours with revenue producing activities exclusively. And when they do that, that's when we see massive, growth jumps in their volume. And it's sustainable because they have the time every month to do it. You know what I'm saying? Remember those days?
Yeah, I do it. And dude, we have seen some remarkable things happen when the loan officer does replace the newfound. So instead of chasing bank statements, they can go out and go get that next loan.
Yep.
And I know we talk about her often because she's such an amazing person. But dude, did you see what Sarah Cox is doing this month? She's got like 19 loans for the month or something like that.
It's something
Yeah,
outrageous. Yeah, it's pretty darn great. And
yeah,
and
and I
she's a
think
perfect example.
yeah, I think like what was it 2 years ago? I think she closed, and I might have you probably have the story better than I do, but if I remember right, like 2 years ago, she closed zero, and here she is closing like 19 loans for the month.
Right. She got out of a management role and into a sales role after a long time. I mean, she's been in the industry for a very long time, but she had switched roles. And so it was hard transition back, to personal production. But
Hmm.
I mean, she's a glowing example. And I think she's the poster child of what we're talking about because of a few things. But I think everyone, if you really know her, there's a couple of really important things. One, if you ever talk to her, within 10 seconds, her passion for this industry, her passion for helping people,
Mhm.
her knowledge of this industry. She's extremely attractive to be around. She just makes the day better. Her voice
It's a nice
inflection.
person.
She's incredibly kind.
Mhm.
But she has a strategic path every day, and everything's around. Remember I told you that one guy that taught me, this guy's name was Terry Brown. He was really smart, and he was like a mentor of mine 30 years ago. But he told me, "Hey, you want a Harvard business education in 10 seconds?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Your job's to keep create, keep, or grow a customer. That's it. I don't care what walk of
Mhm.
life you're in. Your every day, your job is to create, keep, or grow a client or a customer. And Sarah does that incredibly well. It's it's a focused effort every day. She's strategically spending all of her hours, investing all of her hours either in face-to-face interactions with people that need to borrow money or with people that can lead her to people that need to borrow money. And she does not do much else. And
Yeah, I could tell you, you won't find her collecting page 3 of the bank statement. I can tell you
no,
that.
no, that's
So,
not her. And she's been through ups and downs. She's had teammates, come and go. She's had some challenges with certain things, but at the end of the day, she never strays from the facts. And the facts are when she's prospecting X number of hours a week, her pipeline is full. And when she's not, it isn't. It's that simple.
hey,
So what I
I
love
got a question
about
for
her.
you. I
Yeah,
got a
go ahead.
question for you. You went back to the management thing. So I've got an assistant now.
Yep,
I'm closing 4 loans a month,
yep,
and I'm ready to take this to 8 loans a month.
yep.
How is that person managed?
The assistant.
Yeah.
Well, the loan partner, in my eyes, I see some things, and again, we made this mistake too, but we don't now, is at the beginning, we didn't have minimum standards. Remember? We didn't have, service level agreements. We didn't have mandatory clear to close 5 days before the contract date. We didn't have these standards in place. And it's really when we did two things: when we professionally managed them internally, and when we had non-negotiable minimal standards, that's when everything changed for us. And you can't just go from 4 to 8. It's not that simple. It's requires that the person assisting you is held accountable to an outcome, because you're not just talking to 8 people to close 8 loans, right? And so it can start getting pretty full days. And if you're not disciplined and if you're not managed to a minimum standard, then it's not going to happen.
So Sarah is out talking to referral partners and talking to borrowers and
Correct.
structuring the deals. Somebody else is doing all the paper chasing.
Correct.
So, and let's say, and I'm going to use a hypothetical name here. Let's say her assistant is Bob.
Yeah.
She's out of the office getting more loans. Who's managing Bob?
Andy.
Who's Andy?
Andy is the pipeline manager and operational manager for that division, and he's managing Bob.
So, one of the big mistakes, here's a mistake I've made: holding on to the wrong person way too long. But you know why, Kevin? You know why?
Because you're nice.
Because I'm nice. I call it nice guyitis,
Yeah.
right? I'm a nice guy. You're a nice guy. And that's a problem. It's our gift and it's our curse. It's our gift because it makes us great salespeople, because we actually care for people and want to do what's best for them, right? So, which is most of the people listening to this can really relate to this nice guyitis or nice ladyitis, thing. So
It's
his,
prevalent.
yeah,
It's
so
prevalent.
historically, I was horrible at letting somebody go. Um, yeah, I'm nice, and I don't want to let anybody go, like, ever, even when it's a horrible situation. So having, in this case, Andy, um, that's a he, I take it, Andy.
Yes.
So he's the one that if Bob's not up to standards, he has a firm talk with Bob. He redirects Bob's, and if that doesn't work, he replaces Bob. And the salesperson doesn't have to have any part in that.
Well, correct. And it makes me think about, remember when you and I wrote that 10 Commandments to branch management thing years ago?
I do.
Number 8 was manage activities, not personalities.
Talk about that.
And that's something that I see is, personally we had a problem with it, but I see it every day. I saw the worst example of this in the history of my mortgage career. And it was when the market changed back in January of 22. And I watched a group not be able to adapt to that change. And
Mm.
it didn't have minor impact, it had catastrophic impact. Because if you remember back in that day, all of a sudden, like a faucet was turned off overnight, the spigot just went off, that applications were half of what they had been literally 30 days earlier. And the revenue per loan shrunk 30% overnight. So when you have half the number of units and one third less revenue, or close to one third less revenue per closed loan, you can't run your business the same way you had the month before. And the people that waited and waited and waited and said, oh, the spring market's coming and all this, I've seen catastrophic losses, and it's impacted thousands of people, and just it was bad, but it was all due to nice guyitis, like, oh well, but so and so's great. Yeah, so and so is great, but we don't have a company if we don't react to this market change today,
Yeah.
and then everybody's out.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
just it can't be that way. You have to manage to activities and outcomes, not to personalities, and that's hard for nice people to do and for salespeople to do most of the time.
Yeah. So I would say so just kind of a summary of what we've talked about so far here, that in building one of the most successful branches in the entire industry, we have learned proper staffing is way harder than what we thought.
Correct.
It's way better. So that's part one. Part two, have somebody other than yourself actually hiring your assistant. Now, I believe in like if so let's say if Julie is the loan officer. Hey, Julie, we're getting ready to hire, you know, Larry to be your assistant. Um, Certainly, we're looking for Julie's feedback. Like, hey, why don't you do a Zoom with him and make sure you guys mesh okay?
Sure, there's a
I think that's good.
compatibility reality that has to exist. They got to vibe together. They got to be on the same page. Their core values have to be aligned, and all that. Yes.
But the actual process of finding that person, and probably even more important, managing that person, is probably going to fall better on somebody else's shoulders and not the loan officer. Because the other thing about finding an assistant, all those hours that I spend, or days or weeks I spend looking for an assistant, I'm not spending looking for my next loan. And if I'm not careful, the process of hiring somebody takes away from my sales process. When they finally come and join me, assuming it's the right one to begin with, my volume could now be down because I haven't been focusing on closing loans. And my first action might be, gosh, I need to lay this person off because I got no loans for the month. So I found that to be a real issue too.
100%. I still see it every single day in my regular life. I still talk to people every single day that have literally done exactly what you just said, and it's been really not great for their business at all.
Yeah, 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 we're and every now and then I see that rare individual that they seem to have a knack for hiring the right people.
Oh,
And
there's a percentage, obviously, that are better than most at it, no doubt about it. I'm just saying, on the general sales population, there's better ways to do that than have, you know, than have the salesperson do it. There's better ways.
and then the second one that you brought up. So number one, managing, putting a team together is way harder than what we expected. Way harder. And then number two, what you mentioned here was managing activities and not personalities, where we have to remove um, our personality biases in a good way. We have to remove those, and they're either doing the activity or they're not. If they're doing the
Correct.
activity, they can stay. If they're not doing the activity, I don't care how nice they are. I don't care how long they've been working with me. None of that matters. That if we don't manage the activities, the goose dies, and if the goose dies, everybody's out of a job,
Everyone
including
dies. Yep,
including me.
that's right.
And I tell you something else I've learned too. When I let somebody go, that sometimes that wasn't not only the best thing for me, it ended up being the best thing for them also.
I believe that.
Mm-hmm. I can't, dude. The true story, man. Marie and I just got a text just yesterday from somebody that we had to let go. Super nice person, right? But we were managing activities, not personality,
Right.
and it just wasn't matching up. And just yesterday, this person texted us or texted me, and said, "Hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for helping me through that period of time. And how I wanted to tell you about my new job." And they were explaining their new job and how wonderful it was. And it was actually out of the industry. And just like, hey, come to find out something even better was waiting for me that I just absolutely loved, but I was afraid to reach out and try that in the beginning. And I think the same can be said with most of us did something else before the mortgage industry, and
Right.
something happened that we stopped doing that, and then we moved to this career. So it's not such a bad thing letting somebody go. Sometimes, while painful in the moment, long term, it ends up being the best thing, not just for us, but for them too.
Agreed.
Yeah. So cool stuff. Well, man, I think this is long enough of an episode. So I know we got a handful more things. So maybe we'll shoot another episode of other things that we've learned. So the take home message for our branch managers would be to provide the help for your loan officer so they can go close more loans. And as a branch manager, either you or somebody in your office manage and hire those people, because the typical loan officer are great salespeople, but like me, horrible managers. And then for the loan officer, same thing is, get with your branch manager and set yourself a quota. Like if Kevin was my branch manager and I wanted some help, I said, "Hey, Kevin, I need some help. Um, Here's the activity that brings me in loans. Here's the activity that takes me away from bringing in new loans. I need some help with that person." And Kevin, once you do that, set yourself a quota. Say, "Hey, I'm going to go from 3 loans to 7 loans in the next, say, 60 days. And if I don't, you can let that person go and I'll never bother you about it again." And now you've set yourself a quota to take action with this newfound time to go close more loans. And could I think every branch manager's nightmare is, "I'm going to go get loan officer Larry," and I apologize for the Larrys in the world.
Yeah.
I'm not naming anybody here, of course, but as a branch manager, your branch manager, probably his or her worst nightmare is they go take additional overhead in today's market and provide you help, and then you spend that newfound time either A, being your assistant,
Yeah.
right? Or B, going down the beach and scratching your butt every day. It's okay to do that some days, right? Totally
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Just not every day. Just not most days.
Well, and like we started it off, what we learned, how it's just harder to staff these branches than we thought, and you have to be efficient. And I don't mean a little bit efficient. I think the best run branches that I see every day are those that are fanatical about efficiency. And there are ways to do it. And you'll be surprised if you get the right who on the team. Like Carl, we have, loan partners that are helping 4 people at one time. But if they're incredibly efficient, they can do that. And it's still a big benefit for the person receiving the help. So you can do it efficiently. You just have to be smart about it. You have
Yeah.
to be 100% all in and committed to a level of service that is not readily attainable in the marketplace, and then doing it efficiently so you can still pay your bills.
Hey, let me give you a last thought as we go out
Yeah.
the door here. So I was talking with a loan officer about a little over a week ago, a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Carl, my biggest problem is I don't have enough leads." And I said, "Nope, that's not your biggest problem. That's a symptom of your problem.
Correct.
Your biggest problem is you're not prospecting."
Correct.
Right? You're either not enough to the wrong person, or scripting. You have a scripting issue,
Yep.
right?
Or you're not, yeah, you're
And
just not
so,
good
yeah,
at
the,
it.
the the not closing enough loans is never the problem. That's always a symptom of the problem. And so in his case, he didn't have enough time to go prospect more because he's working his loans all the time. And so, come to find out, his real problem was he didn't have help.
Right.
So he was bogged down in his loans too much, so he couldn't prospect, resulting in not enough leads to go for. I think he was closing like 4 loans a month or something like that. Wanted to go to like 10, something like that, which is a huge difference.
Sure.
Uh,
Massive.
yeah, massive difference in lifestyle and income and what you can do for your family and other people in your community. And But yeah, it wasn't a lead issue; it was a lack of help issue. And so keep that in mind. If you want to close more loans, you don't have a lead problem. That's a symptom of the problem. You got to figure out what the actual problem is. So good stuff, man. Hey, Kevin, I can tell you, and I say this with absolute sincerity, brother, is my life is so much better learning and hanging out with you over these last 12 years. I've learned, I really have, man. I've learned so much from you, and I'm just forever grateful. I really am.
Right back at you. You talk about mutually beneficial. We hit a home run there. That I've learned so much as well from you, and just my life's better because of everything I've implemented of what I've learned. So it goes both ways.
Hey, I'm gonna do a little audible here. If you're listening to this today and you want to know what it looks like to have an assistant on day one, um, here, let's do this. Go to this will put them on your calendar, Kevin. Go to meetupwithkrista.com, Krista, meetupwithkrista.com, and she'll help you either get on Kevin's calendar or on my calendar. And if you're a branch manager and you're wanting to know, like, how do you set this up for your loan officers, we're happy to have that conversation with you. And no credit
Absolutely.
card, no credit card, no opt-in or anything like that. Just get with Krista and tell her you want to talk to. Um, I can tell you, and Kevin knows weight. Kevin's such a humble person. I'm just being very transparent. He would be the first person I'd want to talk to about all this stuff. Cause while I have with his help, I've built up a very large branch. That's all you do all day long is build up
Yeah,
branches. I just happen
that's
to be
what I
one
do.
of them. And so if you're, go to the mentor's mentor, is probably the source of the Nile is probably the best thing to do. But anyway, go to meetupwithkrista.com, and we can talk about how we put these things and how we have these teams all put together. Hey, and for our branch managers, man, this is great for attracting loan officers too, because like
Absolutely.
what Kevin helped me do is we have like these assistants that are already ready. And so then when we look for loan officers that are looking to add to our team, to help them close more loans, we don't have to go find their help. We already got them. And so it's like we've got a race car built. We're just looking for drivers now to jump in that race car. And this is not a race car um, that's never ran around the track. This is a race car that won the Daytona 500, and that now we just look for loan officers to jump in that car that's already got a pit crew, it's already got a team, and we help them learn how to drive. And that's
Right.
kind of the bottom line to this. So meetupwithkrista.com. And again, this is either for the loan officer or the branch manager. We're happy to show you exactly what we're doing to attract the loan officers so that you can duplicate it in your own branch. We're happy to do that. So meetupwithkrista.com. Let's do another one of these episodes, man. I like this thing.
I love it. Any day you're ready, Carl, you let me know. I'm here 100% of the time to do any of this kind of stuff. I love helping people. I love helping our industry. I love our industry getting stronger and better. And there's challenging times, and so it's good to
Yeah.
have good people that care and that care about others. And so it's a great community.
I have to tell you one. I just got this visual image. I think in pictures. I don't know if everybody does that or not, but I think in pictures. And I just got this picture, brother. I am really glad that on this football field, I'm looking to my right and I see Kevin on my team. Because man, I just got this visual image. I'd hate to be on the other side facing you. That would not. I mean, you're a handsome and super nice guy, but I'm just knowing what you're capable of doing. Uh, I'm glad.
I'm
I'm
glad
glad
we're
you're.
on the same team
I'm glad
too.
we're on the same
That makes
team. I
life a
wouldn't want
lot
to.
easier.
I wouldn't want to be competing against you. I can tell you that. So, hey,
Well,
thanks a
I,
lot, buddy. I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate it more than you know. All right.
Okay,
So,
buddy.
everyone, have a great day today. Go make a difference in someone's life. Be great. Go do it with passion and pride. And it's the greatest industry we could ever be in to achieve our goals and dreams and desires. So, I'm just happy to be part of it and part of this community.